We are believers, we are teachers, we are all God's creatures. We are opening up the doors to our home. We cherish the moments when we see our children with faith burning strong, learning at their own paces, smiles on their glowing faces. We're caring for their education. Come and join our family at Eden Hope Academy.
Hello, I'm Kim.
And I'm Anna.
And we are on week 22, timeline cards. And so you need to get out your timeline card and put down week 22, and card number 1. And go ahead, Anna, what is it?
It is Japan and 675 year Shogun rule.
Good job. Okay, so let's go back. So we're in 1867 right now, but let's go way back in time. And we're going to go back 675 years, and we're around the 1200s. And there are emperors ruling Japan. So you have an emperor, and then you've got noblemen below him. Hello, emperor.
And then you have poor little town people.
Well, you have samurai. And samurais are like the warriors. And so 675 years before, 1867, the samurais took over, and they still had the nobleman and the emperor, but it was really the samurai who were in charge. So let's link this quickly. Who would we link it to?
We would link it to,
how about way back to the Romans and the Praetorian Guard. Mm-hmm. So Caesar Augustus, as you guys remember from last year, formed the Praetorian Guard, and he formed it because he was feeling very insecure because he had helped get rid of Julius Caesar. And so he formed this group of men around him who could do anything. And they didn't have any rules or restrictions basically against them. So if they did something really awful, nothing would happen to them. And so what do you know? Just in a couple of generations, they are what?
Auctioning the throne.
Can you believe that? They auctioned the throne of the Roman Empire at one point. And so they had the emperor, like in Japan, and they had the noblemen, like the Senate, and then they had the Praetorian Guard, and the Praetorian Guard went ahead of all of them after a while. So very much like the shoguns did. So the shoguns walked around Japan, and they were known of the men with 2 knives because they would have a short knife, send that up, and a long knife, and the peasants and the farmers had no knives, and so they really held control of Japan. And this was also, some of the 675 years was known as a time of great peace in Japan because they held it in such rule that there wasn't very much fighting. There was in some of the years, but a lot of that time it was very peaceful. So then, knock, 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 who came?
Commodore Perry.
Commodore Perry, high five on that. Commodore Perry came, and he brought these big black gunboats with him, and he said, we really want to start opening the doors to Japan, and they did so. And that was the beginning of the end for the Japanese shogun because their power went down, the emperor's power went up, and they ended their rule that year. So let's link them to, can you throw this up, to the Praetorian Guard? And let's link them to Commodore Perry. And let's link them to the Emperor of Japan. And what else?
Well, we could link it to Commodore Perry, who could link to selling stuff.
So selling, trading, things like that. Okay, so let's leave it at that, and let's go on to our next card. And our next card is what, Anna?
Our next card is the 14th Amendment.
Ooh, the 14th Amendment. What year was that? 1869? Mm-hmm. Okay, so the 14th Amendment is very important because if you recall, let's go back. 1868. Okay, let's go back just a little. Beep, 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 beep. Don't go back too far, Anna.
Or else it'll hit the Civil War.
we'll hit the Civil War, and we don't want to we want to go beyond the Civil War. We want to go right before the Civil War to the Dred Scott case. So both of these are Supreme Court cases. And so throw up a picture of Dred. So Dred Scott, if you guys remember, he was an enslaved man who went and lived in the North for a while, and then he petitioned for his freedom. And Roger Taney, let's go, boo. Roger Taney said that African American people, whether they be slaves or freemen, were not citizens of the United States. And so this amendment, so now we go forward in time, past the Civil War, and it is during the Reconstruction period. So definitely put that up for, throw that up as a link, the Reconstruction period, and what they did during the 14th Amendment is well, let me go back just a little bit. This is an amendment, so this is not a Supreme Court ruling. So when you have an amendment, what are you amending? You're amending the Constitution of the United States of America. So throw that up, Anna. So they are changing or adding to the Constitution of the United States of America. And in the 14th Amendment, it says that everyone who's born on the soil of the United States is a United States citizen. And so that covered every African American who was part of our country, that they are now citizens of this country. And so it finally laid to rest that very awful Dred Scott decision. So let's go through this really quickly again. We can talk about Dred Scott. Throw these up. Dred Scott, they amended the Constitution, which meant 2/3 of the states had to vote for this. So say 2/3 majority. And that everyone who was born on U.S. soil was now a citizen. There you go. And it was during the Reconstruction period. Got to put that on. All right. So we're flying through these cards today. So let's do 22, card number 3. And what is that, Anna?
The Transcontinental Railroad completed in 1869.
All right. So let's do this. Boom. Okay, so, well, it actually was a good thing. So the United States wanted to really populate the middle, the central, and the west coast. So we've already had the gold rush, which brought a lot of people there. We've had the Oregon Trail that we talked about, which brought even more people there. We've had the Mormon Trail. We've had a lot of different things that have brought people to the west. But now we had cattle ranchers throughout the Midwest, and they needed to bring their cows to market, and other people needed to bring their things to market, and we really needed a railroad that connected everything together. So what the government did was they hired 2 different companies. Okay, so the government hired 2 different railroad companies, the Central Pacific, throw that up, and the Union Pacific railroad companies, and they would build westward from the Missouri River because they already had railroad that went to the Missouri River. So throw up a map of where it started, and they would meet wherever they met, but the government didn't say where they should meet. And so their payment would be 6,400 acres of land per mile of railroad lines. And then it was later doubled to 12,800 acres of land, plus $48,000 in government bonds for every mile of railroad track built. That is a huge amount of money to build a railroad track, but they had to go over the Rocky Mountains. That's a lot of work to go through. They wound up blasting through in some areas the Rocky Mountains. So that was a big job. So it wasn't always an easy job. And they were also being attacked fairly consistently by Native Americans. So it was a very dangerous job. And so when they finally got to where they were supposed to be, they kind of wanted to continue making this money. So they kind of made roundabout ways to meet instead of just a straight line. So let's think of someone that reminds us in the Bible. How about King who?
Not Nebuchadnezzar.
Hezekiah, and Sennacherib was going to attack him, and so he needed to divert the water from the hills and get them into the city of Jerusalem, and so they built tunnels. And so he had one person go this way, or one group of people, and one group of people go this way, and they were digging these tunnels so that the people of Jerusalem would get water, and guess what they did?
They missed.
They missed. And so at one point they could hear each other through the walls, and they had to go like that. So it was pretty funny. So it's kind of like the Transcontinental Railroad. They missed, but on purpose at first. But when they finally connected it, it dropped the cost of travel from $1,000 to get from the East Coast to the West Coast to $150. And instead of up to months to get across, it only took a couple of like a week to 2 weeks at most. So it was pretty efficient. Okay, so our next one is what?
Our next.
Oh, that's it. How cool. So we are done with week 22. So we will see you later.
Bye.
And we're going to do week 23 next week.